In 2023, the American public spent over $400 billion on prescription medications. It is a system built on a foundation of synthetic chemistry, perpetual treatment, and enforced dependency. Yet, across the Atlantic, a radically different medical paradigm exists side by side with modern science. In Germany, the government's Commission E, a highly respected regulatory agency, has rigorously evaluated and approved hundreds of herbal remedies. European doctors routinely write official prescriptions for the exact same botanical species that Americans spend billions of dollars trying to eradicate from their lawns. This is not a matter of primitive folklore versus advanced science. There are over 1,000 peer-reviewed, double-blind clinical studies validating the profound pharmacological efficacy of wild botanicals. The chemical compounds synthesized in modern laboratories were, in many cases, originally isolated from these very plants. But a plant cannot be patented. A wild leaf growing freely in a sidewalk crack offers no quarterly growth for a pharmaceutical shareholder. The erasure of botanical medicine in the United States was not an accident of progress. It was a deliberate, highly orchestrated hostile takeover of human health. At the dawn of the 20th century, the American medical establishment, funded by oil and steel monopolists, systematically shut down botanical medical schools, rewritten medical textbooks, and rebranded ancient life-saving crops as noxious parasitic weeds. They created an artificial scarcity to sell you a synthetic solution. They criminalized nature to build an empire. Here is the undeniable science and the hidden history of the healing weeds Europe prescribes, and the true reason the United States forces you to buy pills. Number 1. Dandelion, the exiled liver healer. For over 3,000 years, the dandelion was treated as a medical treasure. Ancient Egyptian physicians recorded its use on papyrus scrolls. The Arabian physician Avicenna documented its power in the 10th century. The traditional Chinese medical system revered it under the name Pu Gongying, deploying it to clear systemic infections and purify the blood. When the first European settlers crossed the Atlantic on the Mayflower, they deliberately brought dandelion seeds with them. It was not a stowaway. It was a carefully guarded survival ration, planted specifically to ensure the colony would not succumb to scurvy or liver failure during the brutal winters. The biological reality of the dandelion is staggering. Its roots are packed with taraxasterol, a powerful compound clinically proven to stimulate bile production and flush toxins from a damaged liver. Its leaves contain an overwhelming density of vitamins A, C, and K, alongside profound levels of bioavailable iron and calcium. Modern diuretics, prescribed by the millions to treat high blood pressure, forcibly strip the human body of vital potassium, leading to dangerous heart arrhythmias. The dandelion leaf is one of the only known diuretics in nature that contains such high levels of potassium that it replaces exactly what the body flushes out. It is a perfectly engineered, closed-loop biological medicine. So why is it universally despised in America? In the 1940s, the chemical industry, led by corporations like Dow and Monsanto, needed a peacetime market for the synthetic defoliants they had developed during the Second World War. They invented the concept of the pristine, monolithic grass lawn. To sell their newly patented 2,4-D herbicide, they launched a massive, psychological marketing campaign to brainwash the American homeowner. They redefined the dandelion, a life-saving nutritional powerhouse, as an invading enemy. They convinced a continent to pour millions of gallons of toxic, carcinogenic petrochemicals onto their own land to kill a free, nutrient-dense food source. They engineered a phobia to sell poison. The plant came back. The science was never the point. Number 2. Broadleaf plantain, the frontline panacea. If you step off your porch and look at the compacted dirt of your driveway, you will likely see the broad, ribbed leaves of Plantago major. The Anglo-Saxons called it one of the 9 sacred herbs. When Alexander the Great's armies marched across the known world, they carried it to treat severe battle wounds. Native American peoples called it white man's footstep, as it thrived in the disturbed soil left by colonizing wagons, but they immediately recognized its profound medicinal value, adopting it as a premier poultice for rattlesnake bites, deep lacerations, and severe burns. Broadleaf plantain is an absolute biological miracle of tissue regeneration. The leaves contain a high concentration of allantoin, a potent phytochemical that rapidly accelerates cellular growth and tissue repair. Furthermore, it possesses aucubin, a naturally occurring iridoid glycoside with aggressive antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. When the leaf is crushed and applied to an infected wound, it acts as a drawing agent, pulling out venom, stingers, dirt, and bacterial toxins, while simultaneously sealing the laceration with a sterile, regenerative barrier. In modern clinical trials, plantain extracts have been shown to inhibit the growth of Staphylococcus aureus, the very bacteria responsible for lethal staph infections. The modern antagonist to this free resource is the over-the-counter first aid industry. Walk into any American pharmacy and you will see shelves dominated by petroleum-derived triple antibiotic ointments. These small tubes cost $10 each and are manufactured using synthetic derivatives that increasingly contribute to global antibiotic resistance. The pharmaceutical industry thrives on the premise that healing must be manufactured in a sterile laboratory and purchased in a plastic tube. The deliberate suppression of plantain's medical utility severs the public from independent self-care. Why teach a child to crush a leaf to instantly heal a bee sting when you can train them to rely on a synthetic chemical compound? The remedy was always free. The scarcity was manufactured. Number 3. St. John's wort, the threat to the antidepressant empire. Hypericum perforatum, commonly known as St. John's wort, is a bright yellow, star-shaped flower that colonizes disturbed pastures and roadside ditches. In ancient Greece, Hippocrates and Dioscorides prescribed it to pull patients out of profound states of melancholy. During the Middle Ages, it was believed to ward off evil spirits, a primitive, theological interpretation of its ability to banish severe clinical anxiety and depression. The mechanism of this plant is not magic. It is hard neurochemistry. St. John's wort contains hypericin and hyperforin, compounds that cross the blood-brain barrier and modulate the levels of serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline in the human brain. Over the past 3 decades, more than 30 rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trials have been conducted in Europe. The results are unequivocal. In cases of mild to moderate depression, St. John's wort is statistically just as effective as leading synthetic SSRI drugs, such as Prozac and Zoloft. However, unlike synthetic SSRIs, which carry a terrifying list of side effects including severe weight gain, emotional blunting, and sexual dysfunction, St. John's wort presents a fraction of the adverse reactions. In Germany, St. John's wort is the standard first-line medical treatment for depression, prescribed by mainstream psychiatrists millions of times a year. In the United States, it is a direct financial threat to a $20 billion antidepressant monopoly. When the European clinical data began flooding into the United States in the late 1990s, the American pharmaceutical lobby panicked. They could not patent the yellow flower. Instead, they weaponized the regulatory framework. The FDA refused to evaluate it as a drug, relegating it to the unregulated supplement market where quality could not be guaranteed. Concurrently, medical journals suddenly produced highly publicized, industry-funded studies hyper-focusing on its interactions with other synthetic drugs, framing the plant as dangerous and unpredictable. They did not disprove the science. They just buried the plant. Number 4. Burdock root, the blood purifier subversive. Growing up to 6 feet tall with massive elephant ear leaves and aggressive, Velcro-like seed pods, burdock is viewed by modern municipalities as a towering nuisance. Yet for centuries, Arctium lapa was the foundation of European apothecary medicine and traditional Japanese culinary health, where it is still consumed daily under the name gobo. Native American healers utilized the deep taproot to treat severe systemic diseases, recognizing its ability to fundamentally alter the internal terrain of the human body. Burdock root is a heavy-duty, pharmacological blood purifier. It is extraordinarily rich in inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds the microbiome and radically alters gut immunity, and arctogenin, a lignan that has demonstrated aggressive anti-inflammatory and antiviral activity in laboratory settings. Modern research has revealed that burdock root actively stimulates the lymphatic system, forcing the body to excrete built-up cellular waste and heavy metals. More shockingly, recent dermatological studies show that burdock root extracts actively destroy the biofilms of acne-causing bacteria and significantly reduce the symptoms of chronic eczema and psoriasis. The villain in this story is the systemic rewriting of medical education. In 1910, the Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundations, empires built on steel and petroleum, funded the Flexner Report. This document fundamentally restructured the American medical system. It aggressively targeted and shut down eclectic and botanical medical schools, ensuring that the only recognized medical institutions were those that focused on synthetic, patentable, petrochemical-based pharmacology. Burdock root, the premier blood purifier of the previous century, was stripped from the medical pharmacopoeia. A systemic condition like psoriasis, once treated at the root cause by botanical blood purifiers, was transformed into a lifelong sentence of expensive, synthetic, topical steroids that merely suppress the symptoms while thinning the skin. Health became a subscription service. Number 5. Yarrow, the Achilles bloodbinder. Achillea millefolium is a rugged, feathery weed topped with dense clusters of tiny white flowers. It thrives in the harshest, most nutrient-depleted soils on Earth. According to historical record and ancient myth, the Greek hero Achilles was tutored by the centaur Chiron in the medical arts, and he used this exact plant to pack the gaping wounds of his bleeding soldiers during the siege of Troy. During the American Civil War, field medics desperately scoured the battlefields for yarrow, relying on it to stop catastrophic hemorrhaging when surgical supplies ran out. The chemistry of yarrow is built for trauma. The plant is saturated with achelene, a powerful alkaloid that acts as a profound hemostatic agent. When introduced to an open bleeding wound, achelene triggers an immediate, aggressive coagulation of the blood, rapidly sealing severed capillaries. Simultaneously, its volatile oils, specifically chamazoline, deploy heavy anti-inflammatory and localized anesthetic effects, numbing the pain while preventing bacterial infection. It is an entire trauma ward contained within a single stem. Today, the modern pharmaceutical and first aid industries produce synthetic blood clotting sponges and chemical hemostatic dressings that cost hundreds of dollars per application, utilized by the military and civilian emergency services. The existence of a free, wildly abundant weed that performs the exact same biological function is a direct affront to this profit model. The systematic severance of generational knowledge has been so thorough that modern hikers and soldiers will walk directly past a field of yarrow while carrying expensive, synthetic trauma kits. A plant that saved hundreds of thousands of lives across human history has been demoted to the status of a roadside weed. $1 million synthetic solution was mandated for a problem nature solved for free. Number 6. Purslane, the omega-3 anomaly. Portulaca oleracea, commonly known as purslane, is a low-growing, succulent weed that aggressively spreads across hot pavement, gravel driveways, and baked garden soil. It is notoriously difficult to kill, possessing a survival mechanism that allows it to retain moisture in extreme drought. In ancient Persia, it was heavily cultivated for its health benefits, and Mahatma Gandhi specifically advised his followers to forage for it to maintain their strength and vitality. Modern nutritional science has uncovered a reality about purslane that completely defies the standard dietary narrative. Purslane contains the highest concentration of omega-3 fatty acids of any terrestrial plant ever tested. It is practically vibrating with alpha-linolenic acid, a compound critical for reducing cardiovascular inflammation, preventing arterial plaque, and supporting neurological health. Furthermore, it is incredibly rich in naturally occurring melatonin, powerful antioxidants, and massive doses of magnesium. It is quite literally a heart disease-preventing superfood that grows out of the cracks in asphalt. The suppression of purslane is driven by the multi-billion-dollar dietary supplement industry, specifically the fish oil cartel. The American public is told that to protect their hearts, they must purchase bottles of processed, often rancid, oxidized fish oil for $40 a month. These marine oils are harvested through ecologically devastating commercial fishing practices, heavily refined, encapsulated in synthetic gels, and shipped across the globe. Meanwhile, the ultimate, free, biologically stable source of cardiovascular health is aggressively sprayed with glyphosate-based herbicides because it dares to grow in the pristine monoculture of the American garden. The chemical industry sells you the poison to kill the purslane, and the supplement industry sells you an inferior, synthetic replacement for the exact nutrient you just eradicated. They paved over the cure to sell you the treatment. The greatest trick the modern corporate medical establishment ever pulled was convincing the global population that healing is a synthetic invention. They have constructed a narrative where nature is dangerous, unpredictable, and obsolete, and true medicine only comes in a plastic orange bottle with a barcode. They have deliberately manufactured an environment of artificial scarcity, stripping the ancestral knowledge of botanical medicine from the public consciousness, all to secure a monopoly on human health. But the biological truth cannot be permanently eradicated by corporate lobbying or petrochemical defoliants. These plants, the dandelion, the plantain, the yarrow, are masters of survival. They possess a deep, ancient resilience that outlasts empires. The healing weeds Europe prescribes are not relics of a forgotten past. They are waiting right outside your door. They are growing in the neglected ditches, pushing through the concrete, and thriving at the edges of the manicured lawns. They represent a massive, decentralized, free pharmacy that refuses to be silenced. The knowledge has been stolen from you, but the resource remains. The ultimate act of rebellion against a manufactured dystopia is to walk outside, bypass the pharmacy, and reclaim the ancient, undeniable medicine growing right beneath your feet.